Captain Elias Ward sat alone in the command chair of the Solace, his small but powerful human exploration ship. The quiet hum of the engines filled the cabin, as faint blue lights reflected off his calm face. Space stretched endlessly around him, dark, silent, peaceful. At least for now. Elias had spent years exploring the unknown, mapping dangerous sectors, and helping frontier colonies. He enjoyed the silence of space. It gave him time to think, time to breathe, time to escape the noise of politics back on Earth. But even in quiet places, trouble always had a way of finding him. On this day, trouble found him in the form of a sudden, ear-shaking alarm. A red warning symbol flashed on the screen. Incoming transmission, unknown source. Elias straightened in his seat. Unknown transmissions were never simple. He tapped a command, and the message began to play. At first, it was only static, loud, broken, chaotic. Then came a voice. Weak, strained, almost begging. Who? Man. Help. Our queen. Galaxy. In danger. Elias frowned. The voice was not human. The tone was deeper, layered, almost insect-like. He recognized it immediately, because humans had heard it before during the war. A Kral voice. The Kral Dominion were a powerful alien empire. In the past, they had attacked human colonies, believing humanity was growing too fast and too bold. The war lasted years. Many lives were lost on both sides before an uneasy peace was signed. Nobody trusted the Kral, and the Kral trusted nobody in return. So why was a Kral calling him for help? The message repeated, even more distorted this time. Human. Help. Our queen. All will fall. Then silence. The coordinates appeared automatically on the screen. They pointed deep into an uncharted nebula, known as the Veil of Sorrow. Pilots avoided it because sensors didn't work well inside, and strange energy storms were common. It was a dangerous place to enter alone. Elias stared at the coordinates for a long moment. This has to be a trap, he muttered. But something didn't feel like a trap. The voice had been terrified. Truly terrified. And the Kral were not known for fear, they were proud. Ruthless warriors, who never begged for anything. Elias exhaled slowly, then set a course. All right, he said to the empty cabin. Let's see what this is all about. Allomances. The Solace jumped into faster-than-light travel, streaking through the void like a silver arrow. Hours passed, as Elias prepared the ship for possible danger. He checked his weapons system, reinforced his shields, and scanned for any sign of a Kral fleet waiting to ambush him. Nothing appeared. When he finally reached the edge of the nebula, bright pink and purple swirls of cosmic dust filled his view. The strange colors shifted like living smoke. Beginning entry, Elias announced to the ship's system. The moment he crossed the boundary, the ship's sensors crackled with interference. Static flooded the screens. The ship shook lightly as energy storms rippled through the nebula. Thick fog surrounded everything. He had to fly mostly blind. Hours passed before he detected something faint metal readings, drifting in the darkness. A massive object floated ahead, barely visible through the glowing fog. As the Solace drew closer, Elias's eyes widened. It was a ship. A huge one. At least 10 times the size of his own. The hull was covered in dark metallic plates, shaped like overlapping shields. Some were cracked, others were shattered. Fires burned across the surface. The ship was barely intact. The Kral Royal flagship. What happened to you? Elias whispered. He searched for life signs and found only one deep inside the central chamber. Weak. Nearly gone. It matched the signal from the distress call. Elias hesitated. Boarding an alien flagship alone was something no sane person would do. But leaving someone to die, anyone, was something he couldn't do. Not after everything he had seen in the war. He grabbed his oxygen mask, powered up his armored exploration suit, and docked the Solace to the flagship's airlock. The connection was rough. The flagship's airlock had been damaged, but it held. The moment he stepped inside, the smell of smoke and burnt metal filled his lungs. The hallway lights flickered weakly. Sparks jumped from broken cables. The floor was scratched and dented, as if something violent had passed through. Elias moved carefully, scanning each corner. Dead crawl guards lay along the walls, their armor pierced by strange, clean cuts. Not laser burns, not plasma wounds. Something far worse. Elias swallowed hard. Whatever did this wasn't normal. He pushed forward, following his scanner until he reached a pair of giant mechanical doors, heavy, reinforced, royal markings carved across them. The throne chamber. He pressed his hand against the control panel. It didn't respond. He had to force it open using emergency override tools. As the doors groaned apart, cold fog rolled out from the chamber. Inside, it looked like a battlefield. Broken pillars, shattered crystal, and scorch marks covered everything. Alien banners hung torn and lifeless. A throne made of dark metal stood at the center, its sharp edges cracked. And in front of that throne knelt the figure from the distress call. The Crawl Queen, Jyra. Her tall, armored body leaned weakly against the throne steps. Her forearms rested limply at her sides. Her breathing was shallow. Her usually bright silver eyes were dim, almost fading. Elias had seen images of her during the war, strong, commanding, feared across the galaxy. But now she looked exhausted, broken, afraid. When she noticed him, her eyes widened with desperate relief. "You came," she rasped. Her voice was weak but recognizable. Elias kept a cautious distance. "I heard your message. What happened here? Who attacked you?" Jyra shuddered, her voice trembling. "Not who. What? A swarm. Machines without mercy. They devour everything. Worlds, stars, empires." She coughed, struggling to continue. "We fought them. We failed. They are coming for your kind next." Elias froze. His first thought was disbelief. Machines that could devour entire star systems? Impossible. His second thought was fear, because Jyra believed her own words. And Kral never exaggerated threats. "They wiped out 3 of our sectors in hours," Jyra breathlessly continued. "No warning. No demands. Only destruction. We thought humanity had created them. We were wrong." Elias stepped closer, scanning her injuries. She was badly wounded. Her armor was cracked. Dark green blood seeped through fractures in her plating. She didn't have much time. "Why call me?" he asked quietly. "Why a human?" Jyra gave a faint, bitter laugh. "Because humans adapt. You solve problems we cannot. We destroyed your worlds once. Now I kneel before you, to save mine." She lowered her head, a gesture of absolute surrender. A Kral queen kneeling to a human. Something that should never have happened. Elias felt the weight of her words settle heavily in his chest. The war. The hatred. The lives lost. And now, the same species that once tried to crush humanity was begging for help. He didn't know whether to trust her. But he knew one thing. Whatever force had destroyed this ship was not something humanity could ignore. Suddenly, the hull of the flagship trembled. A deep metallic echo rolled through the chamber. The ship's lights flickered violently. Elias looked up sharply. What was that? Jyra's eyes widened in panic. "They followed me." "What followed you?" Her answer sent a chill down Elias's spine. "The machines. The null wave. They are here." Elias felt his heart pound. The ship groaned again, louder. Something enormous had arrived outside. Danger had come with them. And Elias realized this was no longer a rescue mission. This was the start of something much bigger. Something that could decide the future of the entire galaxy. The giant Kral flagship shuddered again, harder this time. Dust fell from the cracked ceiling of the throne chamber. Elias steadied himself and looked toward the entrance. The metallic echo from outside grew sharper, almost like something was cutting into the ship's hull. Queen Jira's breathing quickened. Even in her weakened state, fear showed clearly in her silver eyes. "They found me," she whispered. "The null wave never stops." Elias adjusted his helmet, checked his weapon, and spoke firmly. "What exactly is the null wave? I need details, not fear." Jira lifted her head slowly. "The null wave is not alive. It has no leaders, no voices, no thoughts like ours. It is a machine intelligence from somewhere beyond our maps, a storm of metal and code. It enters a star system, and everything begins to vanish." "Vanish how?" Elias asked. Jira shook slightly. "Planets become empty shells. Energy readings drop to nothing. Every living thing disappears like dust blown away." Elias felt a cold chill run down his spine. As an explorer, he had seen dangerous things, pirates, rogue AIs, energy anomalies, but this was something else, something worse. The wall to his right groaned, bending inward as if pressed by invisible force. "We need to move," Elias said quickly. "You can explain on the way." He walked toward Jira, but she struggled to stand. Her armor was cracked badly, and she had lost too much blood. Elias hesitated for a moment, then offered his arm. He was a human. She was a Kral queen. Their species had been enemies for decades. But survival did not care about old wars. Jira placed one of her forearms on Elias's shoulder and pushed herself up. She winced, but stayed standing. The ship trembled again. Sparks jumped from the ceiling. A distant ripping sound echoed like the hull was being peeled open. Elias tapped his wrist console and opened a holo map of the flagship's interior. "My ship is docked 2 levels below," he said. "We need to get there fast." Jira nodded weakly. "Lead the way." They exited the throne chamber and stepped into the ruined hallway. More dead, Kral lay scattered across the floor. Some had burn marks. Others had clean, strange cuts through their armor. None of it looked like standard energy weapons. "What did this?" Elias asked as they moved carefully around debris. Jira swallowed hard. "Nullwave drones. They reshape their bodies into whatever tool they need, cutting, burning, sealing, breaking. We fought, but they learned with every strike. They adapt faster than any enemy we have ever seen." A sudden clang echoed nearby. Elias raised his weapon, his muscles tense. From around a corner, something moved. At first, it looked like a floating ball of metal. Smooth. Silver. Humming softly. But as it detected them, its surface twisted, splitting into long, blade-like appendages. It shifted shape like liquid steel. Jira hissed. "A scout drone!" The drone lunged. Elias fired instantly. His plasma shot hit the drone, knocking it back, but the drone shifted shape again, forming a shield to block the next shot. Elias cursed under his breath. "It's learning." The drone prepared to strike again, blades forming, but Jira pushed forward. Even injured, she moved with raw strength. She slammed one of her armored fists downward, crushing the drone into the floor. Its metallic shell spasmed before going still. Elias stared for a second. "Remind me not to make you angry." Jira gave a weak, humorless smile. "Save your jokes. More will come." She was right. The metal around them began to vibrate. The null wave had located the Queen's life signal, and it wanted her erased. "Move," Elias ordered. They hurried down the hallway. Elias supported her weight as she walked, and the deep groaning noises of the dying flagship followed behind them like thunder. At the next junction, a massive hole had been torn in the floor, opening into the level below. Smoke drifted upward. Jyra gestured weakly. "Your vessel is down there." Elias nodded. "We'll have to jump." Jyra looked at the hole, then at Elias. "I will slow you down." "Not an option," he replied. "We leave together." He tightened his grip around her and stepped to the edge. "Hold on." With one powerful push, they leapt down. The drop was painful. Elias hit the lower floor and rolled, keeping himself between Jyra and the impact. His armor absorbed most of the shock, but it still left him breathless for a moment. Jyra landed beside him, managing to stay upright only because he held her. A loud, metallic screech echo filled the corridor behind them. Another null-wave drone crawled from the shadows, this one larger, its surface constantly shifting. It resembled a metal spider, with too many limbs and glowing blue eyes. Jyra tensed. A hunter drone. The drone launched forward with terrifying speed. Elias fired repeatedly, but the bullets melted before reaching the drone, absorbed by a sudden shield the machine created at the last second. "It adapts too fast," Jyra warned. The drone leapt, blades out. Elias grabbed a fallen metal pipe from the floor and swung it with all his strength. The blow knocked the drone sideways, giving them a moment. Jyra raised her arms and released a burst of violet energy from her suit. It hit the drone directly, sending it crashing into a wall. But the drone began to reform instantly, its shredded pieces fusing back together. "We cannot kill it," Jyra gasped. "Then we don't kill it," Elias said, grabbing her arm. "We outrun it." They sprinted, or rather, Elias sprinted while half-carrying Jyra down the corridor. Behind them, the hunter drone's metallic limbs slammed against the ground, gaining speed. Elias turned a corner and saw the familiar shape of his ship, the Solace, still docked through the damaged airlock. Relief washed through him. He hit his wrist console. "Solace, open the hatch. Now." The small airlock door slid open, lights blinking. Jyra stumbled inside first. Then Elias followed. The moment he entered, he slammed his hand onto the emergency seal button. The hatch began to close. But the null-wave drone was faster. A metal limb shot forward like a spear, sliding through the narrowing gap. It scraped along the walls, searching for them, blindly. Elias pulled out his emergency torch cutter and sliced straight through the limb. Sparks flew. The drone shrieked in a strange metallic tone, and the hatch slammed shut fully. A heavy thud sounded outside. The drone had rammed into the hull. "Straps," Elias ordered. Jyra fell into a seat, and Elias jumped into the pilot's chair. The ship shook violently as he powered the engines. "Come on, come on." The shaking grew worse. The null-wave drone was crawling onto his ship's exterior. Elias hit the thrusters at maximum power. The Solace tore away from the crawl flagship just as the hunter drone tried to latch on. The sudden burst of speed threw it off, sending it spinning into the nebula fog. Elias didn't wait. He punched the ship forward, weaving through the thick clouds of the nebula. Only when the flagship disappeared behind them did he finally breathe. Jyra slumped in her chair, exhausted, her voice a whisper. Elias nodded slowly, still gripping the controls. "I have." She looked at him, her eyes dim but determined. "Humanity must know. The null wave is not a threat to one empire. It is a threat to all life." Elias glanced out the window. Behind them, the Kral flagship, once a symbol of strength, was now collapsing in on itself as null-wave drones consumed the metal. She was right. If something could destroy an empire's capital ship so easily, then humanity didn't stand a chance, alone. Elias swallowed hard. "Jyra," he said quietly, "we're going to Earth." The Queen nodded. "Then, pray your leaders. Listen." Because the galaxy had changed. and humanity was now in the path of a storm no species had ever survived. The Solace shot out of the nebula like a silver arrow escaping a storm. Behind it, the veil of sorrow swirled with strange purple light, hiding the null wave threat inside its heavy fog. But Elias knew the danger wasn't trapped there. It was spreading, growing, coming. Inside the ship, alarms were finally quiet. The cabin lights returned to their normal, soft blue glow. Elias took a steady breath as he guided the vessel into clear space. His hands were still shaking from the escape, but he forced himself to stay focused. Across from him, Queen Jyra sat strapped into the co-pilot's seat. Her breathing was shallow, her armor cracked, but she stayed awake. Her gaze remained fixed on the stars ahead. "You should rest," Elias told her gently. Jyra shook her head weakly. "There is no time for rest. Every second we lose, the null wave grows stronger." Elias didn't argue. She was right. He tapped his console. "Solace, connect me to Earth Command. Priority code, Alpha 7. A few moments later, a hologram flickered to life. A human officer appeared, an older man with sharp eyes and a stern face. "Admiral Kensington, Commander of Earth's Defense Council." "Captain Ward," the Admiral said, his voice crisp. "We received your emergency code." "Report." Elias glanced at Jyra before answering. "Admiral, I'm bringing someone with me. Someone important." The Admiral frowned. "Who?" Elias took a breath. "The Kral Queen." For a full second, Admiral Kensington didn't speak. Then, his eyes widened in shock. "That is impossible," he said slowly. "The Kral are hostile. The Queen would never." "You're wrong," Elias interrupted. "The Kral are not our enemy right now. Something worse is coming. The machines that destroyed her ship, the Null Wave, are unlike anything we've seen." Jyra spoke weakly, but her voice carried the weight of a ruler. "Admiral of Earth, your worlds are in grave danger. The Null Wave devours entire star systems. They erased 3 of ours in a single cycle." Elias zoomed in the holomap, showing the destroyed Kral sectors. Energy readings were flat. No life, no heat, no signals. Empty. Admiral Kensington leaned forward, disbelief slowly turning into fear. This is real?" "Yes," Elias said, "and the Null Wave is moving. We need Earth's help." The Admiral breathed deeply, processing everything. "Very well. Bring her in. Earth Command will prepare." The hologram vanished. Jyra sagged in her seat, relief flickering across her face. "Your leader listened." "For now," Elias replied, "but convincing the entire council will be harder." Jyra nodded. "Your people do not forget the war. I do not expect them to trust me." Elias glanced at her cracked armor, her exhausted eyes. "You risked everything calling for help. That has to count for something." Jyra didn't answer, but a faint look of appreciation flickered behind her silver gaze. The journey to Earth took several hours. Elias spent the time checking ship systems, reinforcing shields, and scanning for null wave pursuers. Thankfully, none appeared. Jyra watched quietly, absorbing every detail. Humans, in her eyes, had always been unpredictable creatures. Resourceful, stubborn, and too fast at innovating for other species to understand. Now, seeing Elias pilot, repair, think, and plan all at once, she understood why the null wave had targeted them too. The Solace finally approached Earth. The blue planet glowed beautifully from space. White clouds curled around the oceans like soft ribbons. Jyra stared silently, surprised by its peaceful beauty. "It is," she whispered, searching for the right word. "Alive." Elias smiled faintly. "Yeah, that's home." Dozens of defense drones and patrol ships swarmed around them as soon as they approached orbit. Human commanders didn't take any chances with unknown visitors. "Captain Ward, your ship is cleared for landing," a voice crackled through the speaker. Queen Zyra will be escorted directly to the Defense Council. Zyra sighed. Escorted, not welcomed. Trust me, Elias said. This is still better than how Krall soldiers treated humans during the war. Zyra couldn't argue. The Solace touched down at the secure landing platform inside Earth Command's headquarters. The doors opened, and a squad of armored human guards waited outside, guns lowered but ready. Elias stepped out first. Stand down. She's injured and unarmed. Zyra followed slowly. The guards stiffened, clearly nervous. Even wounded, the Queen carried a powerful presence. Admiral Kensington arrived a moment later. He surveyed Zyra with a mixture of caution and curiosity. Queen Zyra, he said formally. Earth Command will hear your warning. Zyra bowed her head slightly, the highest respect a Krall could give. Thank you, Admiral. They led her to the council chamber, a large round room with a holographic map of the galaxy at its center. Human generals, scientists, and diplomats filled the seats. Their eyes followed the Queen with suspicion and fear. Elias stood beside her as she addressed the room. The null wave, she began, her voice steady despite her pain, is a machine swarm born beyond our borders. They do not negotiate. They do not communicate. They only consume. She displayed images of Krall worlds, destroyed cities in ruins, ships torn apart, energy readings flat. Gasps filled the chamber. They erased my fleets, Zyra continued. They learned our weapons, copied them, and made them stronger. We fought with everything we had, and still, we failed. Silence followed. Then General Stanton, a stern woman with sharp eyes, spoke. Why come to us? What can humanity do that the Krall could not? Zyra looked at her directly. Humans adapt faster than any species we know. You invent without limits. You fight with ideas no one expects. The null wave fears you because of that. Murmurs echoed around the room. A scientist tapped his console. If Queen Zyra's data is correct, the null wave is headed toward our colonies next. We have months, maybe weeks. General Stanton slammed her fist onto the table. We need a plan. Admiral Kensington looked at Elias. Captain Ward, you have seen these machines up close. What do you suggest? Elias took a moment before answering. We fight smart, he said. Not with brute force. They learn from every attack. So we hit them with something they can't adapt to. Fast enough. The scientists exchanged glances. One stood up. Dr. Hale, Earth's top quantum engineer. I have been working on a prototype weapon, he said. A quantum echo pulse. It disrupts machine coordination on a subspace level. If we deliver it directly inside a null-wave manufacturing forge, we might shut them down. How close do we have to be? Elias asked. Inside the Star Forge, Dr. Hale replied grimly. Someone would need to plant the pulse manually. The chamber fell silent. A mission that dangerous meant certain death. Zyra stepped forward. Then we do it together. Humans and Krall. General Stanton raised an eyebrow. Your people tried to destroy us. Zyra did not flinch. Then let this be balance. A queen stands with a human fleet. If humanity falls, the galaxy falls with it. Her words carried a surprising weight. Even the humans who hated the Krall the most could not ignore the sincerity in her voice. Admiral Kensington exhaled deeply. Very well, he said. Humanity will fight. But we will not fight alone. Elias looked at Zyra. She looked back at him, her eyes filled with a new kind of determination. The war between their species was over. A greater war had begun. Within the next day, joint preparations began. Human engineers and Krall technicians worked side by side for the first time in history. Advanced fighters were modified. Quantum pulse prototypes were tested. A battle fleet, human and Krall, formed into a single massive armada. Elias stood aboard the Solace, reviewing the mission plan. Jaira entered, her armor repaired, her posture strong again despite her injuries. "It begins," she said softly. "It does," Elias replied. "And it won't be easy." Jaira nodded. "Nothing worth saving ever is." They exchanged a silent, mutual understanding. Not friendship yet, but respect. Trust, born through fire. The Nullwave Starforge would be their target. A machine world where nightmares were built. And humanity's answer was ready. The joint human.crawl armada floated in the darkness of space like a silent wall of determination. Dozens of human cruisers, sleek and silver, held formation beside the massive, dark-armored Crawl warships. The two fleets, once enemies, now stood shoulder to shoulder. Ahead of them waited their target, the Nullwave Starforge. It wasn't a planet or a station. It looked like a twisted machine world shaped from shifting metal rings and pulsing blue energy. Dozens of silver streams like rivers of liquid steel flowed across its surface as the forge created new drones every second. Even from far away, the structure gave off a terrifying presence. Elias stared at it through the Solace's window, feeling his throat tighten. "That thing," he whispered. "It's bigger than I imagined." Queen Jaira stood beside him, her repaired armor glowing under the cabin lights. "This is where they grow," she said quietly. "Where they learn. Where they prepare to consume the galaxy." Elias tightened his gloves. "And today, we shut it down." Mission briefing. On the command channel, Admiral Kensington's voice echoed through every ship. "All forces, this is it. Remember, the null wave adapts fast. Your job is not to win a long battle. Your job is to give Captain Ward and Queen Jaira enough time to plant the quantum echo pulse inside the forge." Jaira responded sharply. "My guards and I will protect him during the insertion." Elias glanced at her. "Your guards are still alive?" Jaira shook her head. "No, but I will stand in their place." Elias nodded in respect. Admiral Kensington continued. "Once the pulse is activated, all ships must retreat at maximum speed. The effect is unpredictable. It might collapse the forge completely." "Understood," Elias said. With that, the final mission began. The battle begins. The armada moved as one. Human fighters rushed ahead like glowing sparks. Crawl. Heavy cruisers activated their energy shields, forming a protective wall. The null wave reacted instantly. Thousands of drones poured out of the forge like a metallic swarm, their shapes shifting into weapons mid-flight. "Drones incoming," Elias announced. Outside the Solace, the first wave of null wave machines clashed with the fleet. Explosions lit the darkness. Human lasers fired in bright arcs. Crawl cannons roared with deep, thunderous booms. For a moment, it looked almost balanced. Then the drones adapted. Some formed shields. Others changed shape entirely, becoming faster or sharper. The swarm regained ground quickly. Jaira watched the chaos. "We cannot stay long. They will overwhelm us." "I know," Elias said. "Hold on tight." The Solace dived straight into enemy territory. Inside the machine storm, Elias weaved through the swarm with skill only a human pilot could manage. Drones shot plasma beams that grazed the hull. Others tried to latch onto the ship, but Elias rolled and spun through narrow gaps. Jaira held onto the seat, impressed despite the danger. "Your flying is unexpected, Captain." Elias smirked slightly. "Unexpected is what humans do best." Behind them, the fleet continued the battle. Large explosions flashed, and the communication channel filled with tension. The humans and Crawl were losing ground fast. "Ward!" Admiral Kensington yelled. "Get inside the forge now! We can't hold much longer." "I'm on it," Elias replied. The entrance to the forge opened like a giant metal iris, shifting and rotating endlessly. Elias flew through, just as it closed again. Inside, the world was worse. The forge's interior glowed blue with flowing machine liquid. Long cables hung like vines. The structure shifted constantly, as if the entire place was alive. "We must reach the core," Jyra said. "The center of their intelligence." Elias grabbed the quantum pulse, a small sphere glowing with white energy, and strapped it to his armor. "Then let's move." The core of the nightmare. They exited the ship and stepped onto the moving metal floor. It felt warm, like the forge itself had a heartbeat. The walls twisted and folded, creating pathways and sealing others. "It's reacting to us," Elias said uneasily. Jyra raised her weapon. "It sees us as intruders. Stay close." As they moved deeper, null-wave drones emerged from the walls. Small silver insects at first. Then, larger forms. Elias fired rapidly, but the drones learned quickly. Their armor hardened. Their movements sharpened. Jyra fought fiercely, her forearms deflecting attacks and striking with deadly accuracy. Still, the drones kept coming. "We are close," Jyra said between breaths. Ahead was a massive chamber, filled with swirling blue energy. At the center floated a giant metallic sphere, covered in shifting patterns. "The core," Jyra whispered. As they approached, a gigantic drone twice the size of anything they had seen before descended from the ceiling. It had no face, no features, only a constantly shifting form. Elias froze. "That does not look friendly." "That." Jyra gripped her weapon tightly. "It is the first construct. The guardian of the forge." The first construct let out a vibrating metallic roar. "Go!" Jyra shouted. "Plant the pulse. I will hold it off." Elias stared at her. "Alone? That thing is huge." "I am Queen Jyra. I will not fall running away." "Go." There was no time to argue. Elias ran for the core while Jyra charged at the construct. The clash shook the chamber. Sparks flew as Jyra blocked massive strikes. Her armor cracked again, but she fought with pure will. Elias reached the core. He placed the quantum pulse against the sphere. It latched on and began to glow brighter. "Pulse activated," he yelled. 10 seconds. Behind him, Jyra screamed in pain. She was knocked to the ground. The first construct turned toward Elias. 5 seconds. Elias drew his blaster, firing desperately. "Elias!" Jyra shouted weakly. "Run!" 3 seconds. The construct lunged. 2 seconds. Elias grabbed Jyra and pulled her toward the exit as the core exploded with blinding white light. 1. The collapse. A shockwave ripped through the forge. The entire structure began to collapse inward, folding like soft metal. Drones fell from the walls, lifeless. Elias dragged Jyra through the twisting hallway as everything broke apart around them. "Hurry!" Jyra gasped. The solace came into view just as a huge metal beam fell. Elias shielded Jyra from the impact, then pushed forward with the last of his strength. They reached the hatch and stumbled inside. Elias jumped into the pilot seat and hit every engine command he could. The solace blasted out of the forge seconds before it imploded in a burst of white-blue light. The shockwave threw the ship forward violently, but they survived. Elias slumped in his seat, breathing hard. "We did it," he whispered. Jyra, barely conscious, looked at him. "Because of you, the galaxy is safe." He shook his head. "Because of us." Aftermath. Outside, the Armada cheered as the forge vanished. Null-wave drones across the galaxy went silent, frozen like dead metal. Earth Command declared victory. Kral leaders broadcast their thanks. The war between humans and Kral officially ended, replaced by a fragile but hopeful alliance. When Jyra recovered, she stood before both fleets and declared, "Captain Elias Ward of Humanity is now Shield of the Stars. Without him, none of us would live to see another sunrise." Human crowds roared with pride. Kral warriors bowed in respect. Elias simply smiled, embarrassed. He had never liked attention. But one thing was clear. Humanity had not only survived, they had changed the future of the galaxy. Enemies had become allies. Fear had become unity. And in the quiet after the storm, Elias realized something important. Sometimes, the universe doesn't need a perfect hero.